Hi there. My name is Holly Haynes, and I am a business strategist who helps you build a full-time business on a part-time schedule without relying on the social algorithm. And today we're talking about summer schedules. So if you're feeling overwhelmed with building a business, having some fun in the summer, and actually hitting your business goals, then don't worry, you're not alone, because this week's pep talk is all about conquering the summer months with laser focus and maximum productivity. So I'm talking today all about introducing you to business sprints. I'm sharing that I had the title of organizer extraordinaire in my corporate days, and I'm giving you some behind the scenes of how we used to crush projects in a short amount of time in super short bursts of intense work to help you achieve goals fast for Fortune 500 companies. And now you can do it the same for yourself. So we're talking all about being laser focused, giving you a boost of motivation and helping you actually get done with your projects faster. I can't wait for you to listen to this episode. Today's episode is all about conquering the summer months with laser focus. So I don't know about you, but when my kids get out of school, our schedule looks so different. And so I have to really think even more intentionally about what do I want to accomplish? How do I want to accomplish it? And at the same time, we all know that at least I want summer to be relaxing and fun, but it's kind of tricky to stay on top of all the things. So how do you navigate scaling a business and then also wanting to go to the pool and drinking margaritas, at 2 p.m. if that's your choice, right? So we still want to crush our projects and have a little fun. So on this week's pep talk, I'm digging into the project management method that I used in my corporate career quite a bit when teams got super behind or they got overwhelmed. And what that means is to think of your summer schedule in terms of sprints. So I know it sounds corporate-y, but I promise you it works. So in my corporate job back in the day, just a little context behind the scenes of why this works, we had to create our own business card. So I don't even know, do people still hand out business cards now? I don't know. Anyways, I had what I thought was a really cool business card. And instead of ordinary titles, we had to create our own title. So my title that I came up with was organizer extraordinaire, also hard to say fast. And the reason being is I was typically brought in to clean up really messy projects, right? So where teams were overwhelmed and they were making zero progress. Maybe they didn't have enough resources. And so they brought me in for a couple of months and we would clean it up and actually get the results that they wanted. So think of this as your business in the summer, right? You have goals that you want to meet. You also want to take time off. You also want to have some fun. And you're like, oh my gosh, how does this all fit in? So these are two things that we would always do on day one when I was brought in to the project as organizer extraordinaire that you can apply to your business right now. The first one is we would co-locate the team. And I remember when one of my mentors told me this, I was like, really? That seems really simple. All you have to do is make everyone sit next to each other. And they're like, yes. And so I did it every single time. And basically what happened is the teams were so much more efficient because they just weren't walking down the hallway. What happens when you walk down the hallway? You get distracted, you go get coffee, you're eating a snack, and then you forget who you were going to talk to. Same thing as a solopreneur, right? Maybe someone that has a virtual team, or maybe we're just thinking about batching differently or theme days, because what happens when you walk down the hallway? I would call the hallway social media. You log on, you've got a million tabs open, you get distracted. All of a sudden you're looking at a Pilates class instead of writing a podcast. And you're like, oh my gosh, where did my time go? So that's number one, right? Is to really think about how can you just streamline your schedule. And so if you haven't listened to CEO Week, just go to hollymariehaynes.com/CEO Week. I've had clients take this challenge over and over and over again, and it's going to help you co-locate your team per se, but actually think of a way that you can streamline your schedule for the season that you're in. So that's number one. Number two is what I call business sprints, and what I want to talk about today. So business sprints would look like, hey, let's look at the calendar and think about what is the best thing we can do to get the biggest win in the shortest amount of time? So what's the best thing you can do to get the biggest win in the shortest amount of time? And honestly, when you join any of our programs, communities, this is what I help you do. I help you pull out what's the biggest impact you can make in the shortest amount of time. So sometimes this could be, as an example, like a focused launch for 2 weeks, or it could be like a super quick win. Like, I'm just going to outsource this project. I'm going to get it done. And then I'm going to focus on 2 to 3 things that have been on my list forever. And I'm just going to do it, right? Like, I've had creating a podcast on my list forever. I'm going to set aside 2 weeks and I'm just going to knock it out. Another example is I have a client who's in her really, really, really busy season. And so we've got all these goals to like redo her lead magnet and create some funnels and create some automations. And there's not time for it right now. So instead we're like, okay, what's the sprint, the focus that you should follow right now? And so we actually flipped her model and said, hey, let's just go talk to your current clients and see what they need and use them first. Let's talk to them first and create offers and products around what they want. That's easy. That's an easy win. So the reason why I love sprints is they're perfect for summer. And I'll get into some more examples, but basically a sprint is a very short burst of intense focused work. So it's really designed to help you achieve a specific goal within a defined time frame. And so when I was working full time and building this business and balancing summer schedules, this was a way, and still a way, that I accomplish it when I start to feel pressure and I start to feel like, oh man, I really want to get this done and I just don't know how it's going to happen. And so what this does is it allows you to make significant progress in a concentrated period. Because what happens when you have a deadline? You always wait until 2 days, 24 hours before the deadline, and then you get it done. So all I'm saying is create these like little mini sprint deadlines so that you're getting it done faster. And then you've got open time, open capacity to actually enjoy the summer. So before we get into actually planning your sprint, just a couple more things on why I think this is so effective. Basically, we're setting little mini deadlines for little mini tasks. So increased focus, right? Let's say you want to start a podcast and you've been putting it off forever. You're like, okay, you know what? The month of June, I'm starting a podcast. That's all I'm going to worry about. That's your sprint. You get it done. It leads to laser-like focus on your goals. I also think it's enhanced motivation, because let's pretend you want to start a podcast, you get it done in June, then you go on vacation in July. To me, it creates a sense of urgency and it creates motivation and it helps you achieve something in a shorter amount of time. And then finally, you're seeing this as I explain it, it's just you get it done faster. So we're focusing on one thing. We're avoiding this like constant context switching. We're slowing down to speed up. And then we have the capacity and the freedom to actually enjoy our time. So I want to get a little tactical and actually help you plan your summer sprint. And so this is what you need to do to figure out what these look like. The first thing you want to do is identify your summer goals. So what do you want to achieve before your like vacation mode kicks in or before your kids go back to school? And this does not have to be business. It can be personal. It can be like whatever you want it to be. Then I want you to choose a manageable time frame. So let's say you're looking at, usually I do a month at a time or 2 weeks at a time. So let's go back to the podcast example. You want to launch a podcast by the end of the summer. So let's do as much as we can in the month of June. So the month of July, you can maybe play catch up and then actually enjoy your vacation. And so depending on your project scope, your manageable time frame is usually 1 to 4 weeks. And then what you want to do is want to break it down into actionable steps. And so we actually do this every month inside our Crush the Rush Club, but we actually break it down into project steps. So if you wanted to create a podcast, let's say we're going to create a sprint around it. Let's give us 4 weeks to do it. So week 1, we're going to write down 30 episodes that we could do for this podcast, right? Week 2 is we're going to figure out how we want to market it, what the name is, and maybe write a couple episodes. Week 3, we're going to record some of the episodes so we can get ahead. And then week 4, we're going to actually put the marketing together and get it out to the world. That's a really basic example, but basically we're taking this really important goal and we're compressing it into a timeline and then giving you very specific steps to work on. And so we're really taking your focus and focusing it into one thing. And so the last thing that you want to do is actually communicate your sprint, right? Like maybe tell your family, your spouse, your friends, your coach, like whoever it is, that you're going to be like extra focused on this for a short amount of time. And you want people to help hold you accountable. So a couple of other examples of a summer sprint might be, maybe you want to plan a launch in early June. Again, so you can have July off. If you can't tell, I really like to take July off. Two, maybe you're setting aside a week to go all in on creating your strategy for the next year, right? So you could think of like, what do I want to do in September? I'm going to take some time in June and I'm going to figure that out. Maybe you want to create a podcast, finish a lead magnet, update your email sequences. So instead of doing it a few minutes every day, we're going to create a sprint where we're like, hey, this week or this month, this is the one thing that I'm focused on because I just want to get it done. So we recently did this as another example for our planner. So our brand new Crush the Rush quarterly planner is coming out in June. It's called the Growth Collection. And we gave it, I don't know, I'll call it like a glow up. So it's still the planner that you know and love, but we've added in some really cool business strategy tips and I would say productivity tips. So it's kind of like a book and a planner all in one. And so we went through and we made all the updates. We reviewed the cover. We sent it to the printer. It was like a beast of a project. It's like 310 pages, but we did it in 1 month. Actually, we did it in 3 weeks because I knew I had to get it to the printer by a certain time. And so then I worked backwards and I said, can be my only focus this week because I can't review 310 pages, 10 minutes a day for 6 weeks. Like that's not going to work. And so I set aside a sprint for 1 week and I set aside time to edit and review and not be distracted by other things. I wrote it on a big whiteboard, what our focus was for the week, communicated with the family, and then we got it done. So that's another example. Second example, just in our own business, is our current launch, right? So we're in the middle of our mastermind launch. Hello, all of our new members, if you are listening. And our goal is to obviously launch it this month and a little bit into summer. And then summer is going to slow down a bit from the external side. So like what you see, we're not recording any new podcast episodes this summer. You'll still hear them, but they're all pre-recorded ahead of time. And then we're working on some of our back end things over the summer. So we'll have some sprints related to, how are we going to hit our income goals in the fall, doing some strategic planning, cleaning up some of our funnels, going back and look at some of our old courses. And so I'm prioritizing our summer schedule based on these little bitty mini projects that I'm focusing on 1 month at a time. So if you're working full time, a sprint might be taking 2 days off, right? So I actually have some mastermind members that just did this. We're hosting a virtual retreat as I'm recording this. They took Thursday and Friday off of their full-time job to really step into the CEO role of their business, put together a solid plan for the summer and the fall that aligns with their schedule. They now have a plan for what to do next, and then they can go back to work and not feel as overwhelmed because they have their sprints and their quarter planned. So it's really, really important to just think about like, what are the projects that you want to get done? What do you want your schedule to look like? And how are you going to execute it? So a couple of other tips that I like to think about over the summer, just in terms of managing your schedule, is obviously think about your sprints. Like, what do you want to do and how do you want to do it and when do you want to do it? I love batching. That's basically what CEO Week is all about. Like, pick some themes. I also like to say, for me personally, it's utilizing early mornings because my kids are home and I'm not a night person. But pick the time of day where you actually have some quiet hours and you can schedule some focused work. Like, you're scheduling your sprint work in the time of day that works best for you. And then the last two are honestly my favorite. My team keeps saying, like, Holly, you're in your delegation era. And I'm like, yes. Like, can you have somebody else help you? Doesn't mean that it has to be paid, but when you think about your sprint and what you want to do, you want your time to be focused on these higher level projects. And then you can have help with some of the other things, right? So what can you delegate and outsource? And then finally, and honestly, this is the most important, is just because you're running a sprint doesn't mean that you can't enjoy the season. So make sure that at the end of each sprint, or even inside each sprint, schedule some time off for relaxation, because you want to finish your sprint with something to look forward to. Give yourself some time to be refreshed and recharged, so then you can go back into another one ready to go. And then last but not least, I actually wrote this down as a note from some of my corporate experience. And we used to have a summer Fridays policy. And so as I was thinking about summer schedules and business sprints, it's like, hey, what day of the week would just be fun as a summer fun day, right? So typically Fridays are lighter work days where you're maybe brainstorming new ideas, doing something fun, and it's a more relaxed approach to keep the momentum going. So in conclusion, I hope that you're excited for the summer and the change of season, but also thinking about managing your schedule in a way where you're utilizing business sprints so that you can have a productive and successful summer season. But also remember that a little planning goes a long way. So your homework from this episode is to grab your calendar, map out your sprints, and really get ready to crush your summer goals. I hope you loved this week's episode of the Crush the Rush podcast and sort of the live version behind the scenes. If you are looking for more ways to streamline your schedule and build a full-time business on a part-time schedule, I would love to invite you to our free CEO Week challenge. All you have to do is go to hollymariehaines.com/CEO Week, and I'm going to teach you how to take this sprint concept and layer in business themes and actually curate a schedule that's super doable throughout the entire summer. So just go to hollymariehaines.com/CEO Week. It's totally free, and I'll see you inside.